This is day 2 of your linear equation word problem practice. Yesterday we talked about word problems where it was best to use slope-intercept form or standard form in order to solve them. And today we're going to talk about point-slope form. So remember, point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So that's our formula that we would use if we were using point slope. So when would it be best to do that? Well, you're going to use point slope when the problem gives you a sample point. So remember, your sample point would be written where your x1, y1 is in your equation, and your rate of change, which remember, that's your m in your equation. So let's go ahead and look at number 9 and kind of see what I'm talking about here. So it says at Eagle Bay, it costs $10 per hour to rent a canoe. Nick and his friends rented a canoe for 3 hours and paid $45. Write and solve a linear equation to find the cost to rent the canoe for 8 hours. Okay, so if you're looking here, the first thing that would be probably a good idea would be to go ahead and identify your rate of change or your slope, and then go ahead and identify the sample point that they may have given you. So here it tells you that it costs $10 an hour to rent a canoe. So remember, your rate of change is how much something is changing per something else. So the $10 an hour would represent your slope in this problem. Then let's go ahead and look and see if they gave us a sample point. Well, here it tells us that Nick and his friends rented a canoe for 3 hours and paid $45. So our x value was represented by the 3 hours, and our y coordinate, which would be our amount paid, is $45. So as you can see, they've given me both a point and a rate of change. So this point, 345, comes from 3 hours is $45. So 3 hours, $45. And my rate of change is the amount per hour, so that's the 10. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and use point-slope form to come up with an equation in slope-intercept form that we can use to figure out how much it would cost for 8 hours. So here we go. We have y minus, and then our y1 in this case is 45, equals our slope, which is 10, times x minus, and in this case our x was 3. Alright, so now I'm going to use this to write another equation in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to simplify. Step 1 would be to distribute my 10. So that gives me y minus 45 equals 10x minus 30. Then I'm going to move the 45 to the other side by adding. And when I do that, I'm going to get that y is equal to 10x plus 15. Okay? So I notice here that there must have been an upfront fee or some kind of starting point where I had to pay $15 up front, and then it costs $10 an hour to rent the canoe. And you kind of should have figured that that was going to happen, because if it was 3 hours and they paid $45, well, if it's $10 an hour to rent the canoe, 10 times 3 is 30. So I know that they had to charge me something else to make it $45 for 3 hours. So if you notice, 10 times 3 is 30, plus 15 would give me that 45. Okay, but now I need to answer the question. So the actual question that was asked was to find the cost to rent the canoe for 8 hours. So I know that y represents my total cost. I have $10 for every hour that I rent the canoe, so there's my 10 times 8, plus I have a $15 rental fee or some kind of fee up front. So whenever I solve that, I get that y is equal to 80 plus 15, so y must be equal to $95. Okay, so that means that to rent the canoe for 8 hours, the cost would be $95. Okay? All right, so what I want you to do now is go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do number 10 on your own. Then you can restart and check your work with mine. Okay, so this problem was similar but slightly different in the question that they asked. So it tells me that a construction company charges $15 an hour for debris removal plus a one-time fee for the use of the trash dumpster. So they gave me my rate of change, or my slope. That was $15 per hour. Then they also told me that there was a total fee for 9 hours of service was $195. So that was my sample point. I know that for 9 hours it was going to cost $195. So that's what told me to go ahead and use point slope form. So I filled in my values. I have y minus 195 equals 15 times x minus 9. Then I went ahead and I distributed my 15, and that's where this next part of my equation came from. Then to get y by itself, I'm adding 195 to both sides. They cancel here, and I got that negative 135 plus 195 was equal to 60. Once you have your equation in slope-intercept form, you should be able to answer the question that they asked, which is for you to find that one-time fee for the trash dumpster. Well, we know that the $15 per hour is our rate of change, or our slope in this equation, and that means that this 60 had to be your one-time fee because it was your y-intercept. If you think about it, if I had 0 hours of service, so 15 times 0 would be 0, there was still a $60 fee for the use of the dumpster. So that's how we find our one-time fee. So there are 2 more problems in this section. We have number 11 and number 12, but I'd like to talk about those tomorrow in class. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on and look at what we do when we're given 2 points. So if you're given 2 sample points, that means that you are still probably using your point slope form because you have at least a point and you know that you can calculate your slope. So if they give you 2 points, you need to think of one of them as xy and the other one can be your x1, y1. Okay? So let's look at what that looks like. So this is probably going to be, this is a lot more work than your other ones because they're giving you part of what you need, but you have to do a calculation to find your slope. So it says to surf the internet for 25 minutes at an internet cafe, it costs $7.25. For 40 minutes, it costs $9.80. Write and solve a linear equation to find the cost for surfing the web for 1 hour. Okay, so our actual question here is we want to figure out how much it's going to cost for an hour. But before we can do that, we have to write an equation. So they've given us 2 points. They told us that for 25 minutes, it's $7.25. So that means that when x is 25, y is 7.25. Then they also gave us a point where they told us for 40 minutes, it was $9.80. So when x was 40, y was $9.80. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use those 2 points to calculate our slope. And then that way we will have enough information to use point slope form. So remember, to find slope, you're going to find the change in y. So I'm looking for how much does it change from 725 to 980 would represent my change in y. So if you take $9.80 and you subtract $7.25, that is a change of 2.55. And I am going to put that over my change in x. So I need to know how much it is from here to here. So 40 minus 25 is 15. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide that out to make it something usable in my equation, and I get 0.17. Okay, so that means that the rate of change would be 17 cents per minute. Okay, all right, then from there I'm going to go ahead and just use one of my points So it doesn't matter. You can choose to use this point or you can choose to use this point. You should get the same answer either way. I'm going to use the 25, 7.25 in my equation. So I'm going to do y minus 7.25 equals my slope, which in this case is 0.17, times x minus 25. And I'm getting this information from that first ordered pair. Then step 1 is to go ahead and distribute. So I'm going to get y minus 7.25 equals 0.17x minus 4.25. Then I'm going to move 7.25 to the other side by adding. Those are going to cancel. I'm going to go ahead and move up here for my work. So that'll give me y equals 0.17x, and then negative 4.25 plus 7.25 will give me plus 3. Okay? Now, remember, your rate of change was given in cents or dollars per minute. So it was 17 cents per minute. And they're asking me to find the cost for surfing the web for 1 hour. So if x is in minutes, I need to make sure that I convert that hour to minutes. So I'm going to have y equals 0.17 times 60 minutes, because that's how much an hour is, plus 3. And whenever you use your calculator to calculate that, you're going to get that it would cost $13.20 for 1 hour of surfing the web. Okay, so like I said before, this problem is a little bit more involved because they gave me 2 points. So I had to use those 2 points to calculate my rate of change. Remember, rate of change or slope is change in y. That's where I got this $2.55 over change in x. That's where this 15 came from. Then I divided and I got that it was 17 cents per minute. Then I used one of my points. I chose to use this top point right here, and I substituted into my equation where x1 and y1 were. And then I also used my slope. Then I just simplified and solved for y, and once I had it in slope-intercept form, I could use the information they gave me. So the 1 hour went in for minutes, 60 minutes, and then I just did that computation. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do now is go ahead and pause the video and do number 14, and then you can check your work with mine. Okay, so for this problem, it tells you that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So my ordered pairs are Celsius, Fahrenheit, so we have 100, 212, and 0, 32. They want us to write and solve a linear equation to find out the Fahrenheit temperature for 25 degrees Celsius. So the first step was to use your 2 points to calculate your slope. So my change in y, I did 212 minus 32 is 180. And my change in x, I had 100 minus 0, which is 100. Then you can reduce and get 9/5, or just go ahead and divide that out and you get 1.8. Then I chose actually this time to use this bottom point and substitute it into my point slope form. So I have 1 minus 32 equals 1.8 times x minus 0. I distributed my 1.8 and moved my 32 to the other side by adding. So I wind up with y equals 1.8x plus 32. Now remember, your y represents your Fahrenheit temperature, and your x represents your Celsius temperature. So they wanted me to figure out how much it would be, or what the temperature would be if it was 25 degrees Celsius, so that's why I plugged that in for x. So I did 1.8 times 25 plus 32, and I found out that it would be 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, so we have now done 2 problems given 2 points, and then utilizing that point slope form, and there are 2 more. So in class tomorrow we will do number 15 and 16 to get started, and then we'll do a mixed review. You guys have a great night.